Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
Somewhere in the hush of early Earth, before even the first birds ever knew flight, the sky was a great curtain of mist. The air trembled with newborn heat, and the land below was raw and waiting. There were no cities, no footprints, not even trees, just an ancient stillness. Then came the clouds, swelling like thoughts too full to hold, and from them the first raindrops fell. It wasn't a storm, not like the ones we know now. There was no thunder in those prehistoric skies. The drops fell gently, like tiny secrets whispered from the heavens to the soil. Each drop touched the land like a kiss from time itself, soft and cold, waking the sleeping earth with a sigh. This was rain before memory, before even the word rain had been formed. Imagine those droplets, pure, unmarked, timeless, sliding down volcanic rock, soaking into the bare skin of the world. These were the waters that would become rivers, then seas. And one day far into a future, no creature could imagine your very own glass of water. Rain is more than weather, is the storyteller of Earth's oldest tales. Each drop contains atoms, forged in ancient stars, older than Earth itself. Hydrogen, born during the Big Bang, met oxygen created deep in a dying star's heart. Together, they formed water, a molecule that would shape every living thing. This is the rain's secret. It is not just falling from the sky. It is returning, cycling, remembering. Long ago, as rain touched the rocks and slipped into crevices, it began carving paths. These trickles turned to streams, then rivers. They were the first to explore the newborn planet. Water does not rest. It moves, always. It erodes. It builds. It carves canyons and polishes stone. And in doing so, it writes history without words. In those first rains, life found its cradle. Pools gathered in the lowlands. Sunlight filtered through water, warming it gently. Within this warm, watery breath, molecules began to dance. Some linked together, shyly at first, then with growing confidence. Amino acids curled into spirals. Lipids floated like tiny bubbles. And in time, these became cells, the first living whispers. On Earth. Every raindrop since has echoed those first quiet miracles. Even now, when rain taps against your window, it carries the memory of that ancient dance. In the simple fall of water, nature repeats its soft beginning, and water listens. To Japanese forests, scientists discovered that moss drinks rain. So slowly, it absorbs the story of every drop. In the Amazon, droplets pass through 10 layers of leaf before touching soil, each layer a whisper. In Iceland, rainwater falls on lava fields, vanishes underground for 1,000 years, then rises again. In a cold spring untouched, unchanged, still singing the same soft tune. Rain is not just weather, it is rhythm, it is ritual. In deserts, nomads can smell it before it arrives, scent called petrichor. That perfume is a promise, a memory stirred in dust. For plants, rain is a clock. They wait for its rhythm, timing their bloom and rest. In the silence between rains, seeds sleep, wrapped in patient dreams, and we, too, respond to its rhythm. In rainy weather, our brains produce more serotonin. We sleep deeper. We remember more. Some ancient part of us still listens for the rain, not with ears, but with something older, something made of water and wonder. Let's pause now and notice something quiet. The rain you hear outside today contains molecules from those very first showers. It has traveled through clouds, rivers, oceans, pipes, and time, and now it returns. The next time a drop rolls down your skin, feel it. That is a story longer than any book, older than any word, and softer than breath. The story of rain is your story, written in your cells, in the rivers of your blood, and in the tears your eyes quietly understand, because rain doesn't fall. It arrives, it remembers, and it whispers. Let's drift deeper now, following the soft path where rain becomes river. After the first drops kissed the earth, they did not stop. They gathered, curved, and flowed. Some seeped underground, carving silent chambers in stone. Others ran freely, slipping over hills, forming streams that would braid into rivers. These were the planet's early veins, slow-moving, silvery threads weaving life into the land. In every river lies a secret intelligence, not one of thought, but of rhythm, balance, and quiet persistence. Water doesn't argue with the world. It touches. It simply flows around every obstacle, gently shaping it over time. A boulder in its path becomes smooth. A canyon becomes deep. A forest becomes lush. Water has no ego, yet it changes everything, even now. The rivers that wind through mountains and meadows hold this same quiet wisdom. They carry not only minerals and sediments, but also the memories of landscapes long gone. The Ganges whispers of ancient Himalayan snows. The Nile remembers the hands that once cupped it in prayer. The Amazon breathes the stories of trees that no longer stand. Every river, like every person, has its journey and its scars beneath the shimmering surface. Rivers host a world that moves in silence. In the shallows, minnows dart like flickers of thought. Dragonfly nymphs cling to reeds, waiting years to find their wings. Deeper down, eels dream of oceans they've never seen. Some fish sing truly, sing using tiny muscles near their swim, bladders to hum at night. You won't hear them unless you listen with your bones. In many ways, rivers are the planet's quiet messengers. They collect rain from mountaintops and deliver it to the sea, carrying traces of every field, city, and forest along the way. And as they do, they stitch the land together with wet threads. Where rivers flow, people settle. They drink, they plant, they remember. Entire civilizations are drawn like moths to water's gentle glow. Long ago, when humans first learned to trace stars and shape stories, they sat beside rivers. In Mesopotamia, in the crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates, the first farms were born. In China, the Yellow River cradled emperors and poets. Along the Danube, song and firelight flickered beside the banks. Water was not only sustenance, it was inspiration. Even today, cities form along rivers, not only for trade, but for something older. Something in us recognizes water as home. We feel it in the way a river sound slows the heartbeat, in the way mist rises at dawn and softens the sharpness of waking. Rivers remind us of the lullabies the earth once hummed when we were young and unknowing. But rivers are not always gentle. Sometimes they surge with rain, swollen with fury and grief. They flood and rise and pull apart bridges. Yet even this is part of their story. Like emotions too long held back, the river releases what it must, and then it recedes softly again, whispering apologies into the roots of trees. Scientists studying rivers don't just measure speed or depth. They study what the river holds: tiny bits of pollen, fragments of insects, and traces of memory. Some researchers say a single drop of river water can contain 1,000 microscopic species. It is a library too small to see, yet vast enough to hold ecosystems in its silence. Water, when flowing, speaks a language the earth understands. Trees that line a riverbank lean slightly toward the current, as if drawn by a memory they cannot name. Grasses sway, frogs call. Even the stones, those quietest companions, hum softly in the rush of it. If you sit beside a river long enough, it begins to speak, not in words, but in the slow loosening of thought, the easing of breath. There are people who still read rivers like books. In the Arctic Inuit, elders can listen to the sound beneath ice and tell if the water runs fast or slow. In the Amazon, fishermen know from a ripple whether piranhas wait nearby. And in India, pilgrims bathe in rivers believed to cleanse not just the body, but the soul. Rivers carry more than water, they carry light. Scientists have found that sunlight, when it touches water, breaks apart molecules and releases oxygen into the stream. This silent alchemy helps every plant and creature breathe. It's as if the river gathers sunlight during the day and shares it softly, molecule by molecule, through the night. When a child plays by a stream, she is touching time itself. That water may have once fallen over a dinosaur's hide, drifted through Cleopatra's palm, or hidden beneath the silk of a Japanese temple roof. Each ripple holds a history so wide, it bends the meaning of memory. And eventually, the river arrives at the sea. There, the sweet meets the salt, and the two embrace. They do not clash, not truly. They mingle gently, layer upon layer, in estuaries that teem with life. Here, oysters filter the water, birds nest in marsh grasses, crabs scuttle through the mud. This is where stories merge. This is where rain becomes tide. As the river ends its journey, it doesn't disappear, it transforms. Water evaporates, becomes mist, becomes cloud. The cycle begins again. Somewhere it will fall as rain, perhaps into the soil, perhaps into your palm. So the river never ends. It simply moves in circles, like breath, like lullabies, like memory. And if you listen carefully, when you sit beside water, you might hear not just the sound of flow, but the echo of every place it's been, and every secret it carries. Now, let us follow the rain's journey to its softest form, into the quiet glass of water you hold without thinking, into the breath, into the tears you cannot explain. Water, in the end, does not belong only to clouds or rivers or seas. It lives within us, just as we live within its story. Inside your body, water moves in rhythms older than language. It flows through your veins, cushions your joints, carries whispers between cells. Every heartbeat is a gentle wave. Every breath is moistened by tiny droplets inside your lungs. Your blood is more than red, it is liquid memory, made of the same molecules that once drifted through primeval swamps and ancient oceans. The water in you may have once been a glacier, a tear, a wave crashing against a forgotten shore. Scientists have found that the human body is more than half water, but what matters more is how water behaves within us. It does not sit still. It dances inside each cell. Water swirls around proteins, shapes their folds, and listens to their needs. It carries electrical signals along nerves like gentle sparks in a stream. Even your thoughts ride on waves of water, crossing synapses with silent speed. In every moment of awareness, there is water at work, quiet, invisible, and essential. When you drink a glass of water, you are not just hydrating, you are welcoming the universe. That sip contains atoms from stars, droplets that may have rained on medieval stone or pooled in the hollow of a leaf. You are drinking time, you are absorbing stories, and without knowing it, you become a part of the river's tale. In the brain, water is both cushion and conductor. It supports the weight of thoughts, keeps the structure soft and flexible. Without enough water, the brain forgets, concentration drifts. But with it, memory sharpens, moods soften. A calm mind often begins with a sip of water. And though we may not notice, the brain listens to water's presence, adjusting itself in quiet gratitude. In sleep, water becomes guardian. It keeps muscles smooth, slows the pulse, cools the body. And when you dream, the electrical signals that flicker through your brain travel along watery pathways. Some scientists wonder if water plays a deeper role in consciousness itself, whether the fluid that surrounds your neurons may somehow shape the thoughts they carry. It is only a question now, but a poetic one, worth holding close. Even in your breath, water plays its part. Every exhale carries moisture. That soft fog on a window pane is your presence made visible. And every inhale gathers air that has floated over lakes, drifted through forests, kissed the wraiths of distant oceans. You are not just breathing air. You are breathing water's long, slow journey in your skin. Water hums beneath the surface, cooling, healing, holding you together. When you sweat, it is water that slips away not as loss, but as balance. It keeps the system steady. It washes the heat of thought and motion away in quiet beads. You are always evaporating, always returning to the sky. Even your eyes, those small pools of vision, hold water's truth. They blink and shine, reflect and well. Tears are not only sadness, they are salt and water, memory and release. When you cry, your body is not breaking, it is flowing. And in that moment, you are as natural as any stream. Inside bones, once thought dry and still, water lives too. It fills the marrow, softens the core, lets new blood form. And in the womb, where every life begins, water is the first home. We are born of it, held in it, shaped by its quiet support. The amniotic sea is the first ocean we know. Some scientists have tried to map where the water in our bodies has come from. It is not a simple answer. Some is new, drawn from food and drink. But some is ancient, locked inside cells for generations. And some may be older, still primordial water, unchanged since before the first breath on earth. The molecules move through us constantly. Every day we lose and gain. We cry, sweat, breathe, and sip. But always the same elements return. The cycle does not end, it simply shifts. And so The water in you now may one day rise as mist from a morning lake. It may rest in a tree's roots. It may fall again as rain on the other side of the world. In this way, you are not separate from the sky, or the river, or the sea. You are a vessel, a moment in water's long story. You are part of the flow. And this is why water so often brings peace. Why the sound of rain calms the mind. Why a bath restores us. Why a cup of tea comforts. Because water speaks to something deep, something ancient within us. It remembers when the world was young, and it reminds us that change can be soft, that movement can be healing, that endings are simply beginnings. So tonight, when you take that final sip of water, pause, feel its coolness, listen to the silence it carries. You are not just drinking. You are participating. You are honoring a journey older than the stars in your sky. And when you sleep, let the water in you dream. Let it flow through your cells like lullabies. Let it carry the soft memory of rain, of rivers, of oceans. Let it remind you that you are not alone, that you are cradled in the same liquid story that shaped every living thing, that in the stillness, in the breath, in the dark water, is always moving, always whispering, always holding you close, far beyond the shorelines, where waves still speak in sighs. The ocean sleeps in layers. On the surface, sunlight dances like laughter, but deeper, down where light can no longer reach, the sea holds memory in silence. It is not memory like ours of names, or faces, or days, but a memory made of rhythm, pressure, and time. A memory etched into currents and salt, into the breath of coral and the pulse of tides. The ocean has always been a keeper, long before books, before language, before even bones. The sea held the blueprints of life. Within its vastness, molecules met and mingled, warmed by volcanic vents and stirred by mineral winds. Proteins folded, simple cells divided, and life first opened its curious eyes in liquid dark. These early moments were quiet, unseen, but the ocean remembers. Each drop of seawater carries fragments of the past, bits of calcium from ancient reefs, traces of plankton long dissolved, echoes of ice melted centuries ago. The salt in the sea comes from the land, from rocks ground down by time and carried by rivers. So every wave that brushes the sand carries the voice of mountains. It is the earth's own memory made liquid and wide. Oceanographers say the deep ocean is a slow mover. It takes 1,000 years for water from the surface to sink, drift through the abyss, and rise again. This circulation, called the global conveyor belt, links all oceans together, pulling warmth from the tropics to the poles, balancing climate like a slow heartbeat. And in this motion, the ocean stores our history. It remembers every storm, every drop of rain, every breath we've borrowed from its surface. Some parts of the ocean haven't seen sunlight in more than a millennium. Down there, in the still blackness, strange creatures drift like forgotten dreams. Jellyfish that shimmer without heat, fish with eyes like shadows, worms that feed on sulfur and never rise. These beings live in the ocean's quiet memory, where pressure is crushing and time moves slowly. They do not seek the surface. They are content with the deep dot. On the surface, it plays. Wind brushes its face and calls forth waves. The moon tugs at its edges, pulling tides in and out like breath. Birds skim its surface. Whales breach in joy. and turtles cross entire oceans guided by forces we still do not understand. Scientists have tried to trace these migrations, to map the invisible roads that animals follow. Some believe it is the magnetic field, others say it is temperature or smell. But there may also be something else, an ancient knowledge passed not in words, but in water. In the Pacific, there is a place called the Great Blue Hole, a sinkhole, so deep and wide it feels like an eye staring back at the sky. Divers say it is utterly still inside, with layers of water unmixed for centuries. And within those layers, the chemistry changes. There is less oxygen, more sulfur, a signature of a different time. The ocean, in this way, keeps its pages tucked away, unreadable, except to those who know how to listen. Coral reefs, too, are record keepers. Layer by layer, they grow, adding rings like trees. In each band lies the story of seasons, of warmth and storm, of flood and drought. Scientists can read them like timelines, piecing together what the world was like before we arrived. And when coral bleaches, turns white and brittle, it is not only dying, it is warning. It is saying something is changing, something the ocean cannot ignore. Even icebergs, born from ancient glaciers, drift into the ocean carrying bubbles of old air. When they melt, they release a breath from centuries past. Some of that air is from before factories, before machines, before combustion. It is the breath of untouched forests, of wolves running under silent skies. And the ocean, catching this air again, sighs into the wind. Sometimes, scientists drop microphones into the sea, not to hear whales or ships, but to listen to the sea itself. What they find is astonishing. The ocean hums, not like a song, not quite like music, but a deep, low vibration, a sound, too soft for human ears, yet always there. Some believe this hum is caused by waves colliding far offshore. Others think it may be the echo of Earth's own movements, transmitted through liquid skin. Either way, it is a lullaby, older than time. The ocean also carries memory in life. Every spoonful of seawater holds millions of organisms, tiny, invisible, essential. Phytoplankton drift near the surface, absorbing sunlight and exhaling oxygen. In fact, half the oxygen you breathe comes from these quiet floaters, these seaborne plants. With each breath you take, you remember them, even if you do not know their names. These plankton bloom and fade, in cycles shaped by the moon, the seasons, the sun. Some of them have existed in nearly the same form for hundreds of millions of years. Fossils of their tiny shells lie in deep sea mud, stacked in layers so fine they look like the rings of time itself. So the ocean does not forget. It holds the heat of yesterday's sun and the chill of ancient ice. It holds the bones of whales and the tears of sailors. It remembers not in thought, but in salt, in silence, in depth. And when the wind rushes across its surface, when the tides pull close to shore, the ocean whispers back a little of what it knows. Stand beside it and listen, not with ears, but with presence. You may not hear words, but you will feel something, an ache, perhaps, or a calm. That is memory. That is the ocean remembering you. Let us sink deeper now, beyond the surface play and into the cold, slow heart of the ocean, down where sunlight cannot reach, where darkness wraps the water like velvet. The sea keeps its oldest stories. Here, pressure builds so high it could crush steel, yet life endures, patient and strange. Here, the water is not stirred by winds, but by the slow pull of the earth's turning, by distant storms that ripple through the deep like dreams drifting across a sleeping mind. This deep ocean, called the abyssal zone, is not empty, it is full of life that glows. Creatures light themselves with soft, blue pulses. Tiny squid drift like lanterns. Fish with translucent skin flash briefly, like memories rising. These lights are not just for beauty, they are for language. In the darkness, bioluminescence becomes voice, becomes signal. A flash might mean danger, a flicker might mean hunger. A steady glow might mean I am here, and still deeper. Below even the glowing life are the hydrothermal vents. Here, cracks in the ocean floor let molten rock bleed heat into the water. Bacteria thrive there, feeding on chemicals instead of light and around, but is in truth a kind of ancient fire. When researchers send down remote cameras, they see not just life, but stability. These ecosystems change little over centuries. Time moves differently in the deep. Currents are slower. Growth is slower. Memory is longer. In some places, ghostly white coral forests rise from the seafloor. They grow a few millimeters each year. Some are over 4,000 years old. Imagine that a single branch of coral, older than any city, holding the memory of tides that have long since faded, and the sediment beneath it all. It is layered with memory, like pages in a slow-written book. Every speck of dust that falls from the sky, every fragment of shell, every tiny body that sinks when its swimming ends, these settle into the mud. Over time, they form layers that scientists drill and read. We find the silent memory of the earth. The ocean also remembers. Sound, it carries it farther and longer than air. A whale's song can travel thousands of kilometers, bouncing between thermal layers. Some believe that blue whales once communicated across entire oceans. Even now, a call made in one basin can echo faintly in another. When a whale sings, it is not only seeking company, it is writing itself into the water's memory. In 1991, scientists discovered a mysterious sound in the Pacific. It was low and long, and no one knew where it came from. They called it the bloop. Some thought it was a creature. Others, shifting ice. In time, they traced it to the fracturing of icebergs' massive, slow echoes of cold breaking free. But for a time, the ocean held that sound in mystery, as it does with so much else. And even now, the sea still makes sounds we cannot explain. But memory is not only stored in stillness. They loop through the globe in patterns that keep the planet alive. The Gulf Stream brings warmth to northern Europe. The Humboldt Current feeds South America's fish. And when these currents shift, everything changes. El Niño and La Niña are names we give to these memory ripples, moments when the ocean shifts slightly and all weather listens. Climate scientists now turn to the ocean to understand the future. They measure how much heat it holds, how fast it rises. Because the sea is not just a witness seat, is a participant. It absorbs our carbon, swells with our melting glaciers. It warms slowly, and when it does, coral bleaches, fish migrate, weather patterns warp. The ocean remembers what we've done, even if we forget. But not all memory is loss. There is healing, too. Coral grows back. Fish multiply. even whales, once hunted too near extinction, return to sing again. For them, the ocean is not a resource, it is a relative, a wise elder. Fishermen in the Philippines, Polynesian navigators follow stars and swell, trusting in knowledge passed not in books, but in salt water and bone. In this way, the ocean holds human memory, too, not in texts, but in rituals, in songs, in carvings on boats, in the rhythms of nets and paddles. Even the sea shanties, once sung by sailors, those slow, listening to the waves, we often think of memory as something inside the brain. But perhaps it also exists outside ocean places, in patterns, in water. Perhaps when you stand on a beach and feel something rise inside you, a sadness, a longing, a comet, is not just your emotion. This is the ocean teaching you how to remember softly, how to carry sorrow and beauty in the same breath, how to move and rest, how to forget and then remember again. Let us return, not upward, into the waves that lap against harbors, into the salt that lingers on lips after a swim, into. These are small moments, but within them, the ocean's memory ripples still. We often think of the sea as something vast and distant, but it is also intimate, personal. Each wave is both an ending and a beginning, and each one carries more than water. It carries minerals, tiny creatures, fragments of shell and driftwood, even dust from deserts blown across the world. A single wave might contain the whisper of Antarctica, the memory of an African storm, or the breath of a sunlit lagoon. The ocean is always mixing, always sharing. And so, when you step into it, you step into a story much larger than yourself. For children, the ocean is a playground. For poets, it is a metaphor. For scientists, a puzzle. For sailors, a path. For many, it is comfort. The sound of the surf is a lullaby that soothes something deep in the nervous system. It slows the heart, quiets the mind. Some researchers believe it's because the ocean's rhythm matches the tempo of our own bodies, the soft pulse of blood, the slow rise and fall of breath. To be near the sea is to be reminded of the womb, of safety, of the beginning. People come to the ocean when they grieve, when they celebrate, when they need to let go. Ashes are scattered into its arms. Vows are spoken beside its waves. Wishes are written in sand. We instinctively turn to water when words are not enough, and the ocean listens. It does not answer, not in language, but it answers in feeling, in presence, in wind, in spray. It holds space for sorrow. It makes room for joy, and the oceans edge the place where land meets seas, not a line, but a blur. In the tide pools left behind, as the water retreats, life thrives. Tiny anemones open and close. Hermit crabs shuffle between shells. Starfish cling to rock. These small worlds repeat daily, shaped by the moon, remembered by the sea. No two tide pools are the same, yet all echo the same quiet truth. Even in the smallest puddle, the entire ocean is reflected. Further out, the kelp forests sway in slow unison, taller than trees and just as ancient. Seals dart through them, fish nest in their arms. These underwater forests cleanse the water, feed the coast, and absorb the carbon we cast into the sky. Their leaves rise and fall like breathing. When they sway, they create currents, and in their rhythm, they hold the memory of both sea and sun. There are beaches made of glassware trash tossed into the sea, has been softened by time, turned smooth by waves. Sea glass, once sharp and unwanted, becomes beautiful. This is the ocean's way of forgiving, of transforming harm into treasure. It reminds us that nothing is truly lost, only changed, only remembered differently. Even in the open sea, far from land, memory lives. Sailors have long watched birds to find their way. Albatrosses, able to fly for years without touching land, carry the memory of coastlines in their bones. Sea turtles, hatched on one shore, return decades later to lay their eggs in the same sand. They navigate by magnetic fields, by water temperature, perhaps even by taste. No one knows for certain, but they remember. And in doing so, they become part of the ocean's own remembering. And we, too, are part of this remembering. The salt in our tears is the same as that in the sea. The minerals in our bones come from ancient coral and sunken shells. We carry within us the ocean's chemistry, its proportions, its tides. We are not separate. We are a continuation. In Japan, there is a word, natsukashiya. It means a gentle sadness, a longing for something beautiful that has passed. That is how the ocean feels. Even in its joy, there is weight. Even in its sparkle, there is depth. It is always carrying something it cannot keep. A whale's song, a drowned city, a letter in a bottle, a kiss blown from a pier. Some say the sea is rising, that it is angry, but perhaps it is only full of heat, of stories, of the ice we have melted, of the air we have changed. Perhaps it rises not in vengeance, but in burden. The ocean is trying to carry more than it was meant to, and still it rocks the boats gently. Still it cradles the moon in its surface. When storms come, we call them violent, but even hurricanes have places of stillness in the center, just as the ocean, vast and wild, has quiet at its heart. If you could sink to the very bottom, lie flat on the floor of the deep, you would hear almost nothing, just a slow rumble, the sound of the earth turning beneath the weight of its water. We build lighthouses not to stop the ocean, but to guide us through it. We name ships, bless them, give them personalities. We toss coins into fountains. We sing songs to the sea. These are not superstitions. They are recognitions, instinctive acknowledgments that water holds more than physics. It holds feeling. It holds story. It holds us. So when you next see the sea, pause. Let your gaze stretch beyond the waves, beyond the horizon. Feel the wind on your skin, the salt in your throat. Know that you are not just looking at water. You are looking at memory, at the first cradle of life, at a mirror so wide it holds the sky, at a teacher so ancient it needs no words. And as you turn away, you may feel something linger, calm, a grief, a quiet joy. That is the ocean remembering you, even as you remember it. A river begins not as a roar, but as a whisper. Somewhere, in the hush of a mountain's shadow, a drop of rain slides off a leaf. It joins another, then another, forming a trickle in a crease of earth. This is the river's birth quiet, unmarked, unnoticed. But even here, in its smallest breath, the river carries a longing, a dream of movement, a pull toward something unseen. It dreams of the sea. The river does not rush. It learns to move slowly, following the curves of the land. It slips between roots, dances over stones, settles in pools. It reflects the sky, holds the shimmer of clouds, mirrors the flight of birds. In these early stretches, it is young and playful. It sings softly, weaving through moss and fern, touching everything with cool fingers. As it grows, the river gathers strength. Snowmelt from distant peaks joins its path. Underground springs swell its body. Tributaries, other small dreamers, come to meet it. The river becomes a thread of light across the land, stitching valleys together. It nourishes soil, feeds deer and foxes, offers drink to birds mid-flight. Without speaking, it teaches life how to thrive. The people who live near rivers know their moods. They speak of high water and low, of summer drought and spring flood. They tell stories of fish that arrive like clockwork, of trees that lean closer year by year. The river becomes a part of them, and they become part of it. They build homes near its banks. They whisper prayers into its surface. Children toss stones and watch ripples carry their laughter downstream. But the river is never still. It is pulled forward by a desire it cannot name. Even when it loops and meanders, when it lingers in marshes or widens into lakes, it always moves on. There is something in its flowsome memory, some calling that draws it onward. It is not rushed, but it is certain. It moves as if remembering a promise. Along the way, the river changes. It cuts deeper into the land, carving canyons and sculpting cliffs. It leaves behind patterns in stone, shapes that speak of patience. It carries sand from mountains to plains, from forest to delta. The color of its water shifts clear near its source, muddied by the time it nears the coast. But it is still the same river, still dreaming, and as it flows, it listens. It hears the rustle of reeds, the splash of otters, the creak of branches. It hears the cries of cranes and the quiet footsteps of foxes. In the stillness of night, reflects the stars. In the shimmer of dawn, it carries the first light across its skin. The river is not just water, it is memory in motion, a long song sung by the land itself. Scientists have traced the journey of rivers across time. They have followed their paths in satellite images, measured their currents, charted their histories. They find ancient riverbeds buried beneath deserts, fossilized in stone. They find evidence of rivers that once flowed on Mars. Water always finds a way, always reaches, always remembers. The Amazon, wide as a dream, carries more water than any other. Its tributaries weave through rainforest like veins. The Ganges, sacred and storied, is said to flow from the hair of a god. The Mississippi winds like a question through the heart of a continent. Each river has its own rhythm, its own language, yet all speak of longing. All follow gravity and memory, tracing a path home. Even when blocked by dam or drought, the river waits. It pools, it seeps, it finds cracks in stone. It does not force, but it does not forget. Some rivers go underground, flowing in darkness for miles before rising again in sudden springs. They vanish, then return. Their memory is not lost only, hidden. And when a river floods, it is not rigid, its fullness. It spills over not to destroy, but to release what cannot be held. Floods renew the land, leave behind silt that feeds the soil. The ancient Nile's floods were once blessings. Greeted with joy, fields planted in its wake grew richer. Farmers read the river like a book, learned its cycles like poetry. The river taught them time. Even the creatures who live in rivers carry its memory. Salmon swim thousands of miles to return to the stream where they were born. They find their way by smell, by temperature, perhaps by something deeper, some cellular ache for home. Eels, too, make their journey in reverse, born in the sea, traveling upstream for most of their lives. Their bodies change to match each water they pass through. They are living dreams, shaped by flow. Some rivers are clear, others are thick with sediment. Some move swiftly over rocks, others drift slow through meadows. Some are straight, others wind like ribbon. But in all, the current is steady. Even when you cannot see it, it moves beneath the surface. A tug, a whisper, a pull toward something vast and endless. To walk beside a river is to be drawn inward. Thoughts slow to match its pace, worries soften. You begin to notice the world, the way light moves through leaves, the hush of wind on water, the footprints of animals in mud. The river invites you to remember not just where you are, but who you are. It is a mirror, not of your face, but of your stillness. At dusk, the river glows gold. At night, it hums quietly in the dark. Some say that if you sit silently beside it long enough, you will begin to hear its story, not in words, but in rhythm, in softness, in the way it wraps around stone, kisses the roots of trees, carries the moonlight away like a secret. The rivers dream to touch everything gently and then let go, to keep moving even while resting, to give life and carry it onward, and always, always to remember where it's going. To the sea. As the river journeys on, it begins to widen, taking on a new stillness. Its waters, once playful and narrow, now stretch across valleys and plains, curving like soft ribbons laid over the earth. Here, the river slows. It becomes thoughtful, reflective. Its voice, once full of chatter over rocks, now murmurs, low, deep, and even. It is growing older, carrying more, remembering more. The trees that line its banks lean closer, their roots dipping in like fingers, reaching for memory. Along its path, the river gathers, not just water, but stories from rainstorms on high ridges, from snowmelt dripping off alpine stone, from wells where water has waited 100 years. It gathers nutrients from soil, seeds from far away, forests, songs from birds who nest nearby. It carries whispers of conversations, wind-blown pollen, the shadows of clouds. The river becomes a collector, a keeper of everything it touches. The villages it passes know its mood. Farmers glance at its level to know if rain will come. Children toss sticks and watch them drift, racing in joy. Old fishermen sit with their nets, listening to the lap of water against the shore, watching the currents change like breath. To live near a river is to live with time, with change, with a quiet sense that nothing is ever still but everything is always held. Where the river touches human life, it becomes more than just water. It becomes culture. It shapes the way people build homes, grow food, offer prayer. In Vietnam, rice fields shimmer with river water. In Egypt, canals born of the Nile draw green lines through desert. In Venice, streets are made of rivers. In Amazon villages, people sleep with the hush of water outside their doors. The river is not background, it is center, breath, rhythm, and still. beneath all this. It flows. There are places where rivers form deltas broad, gentle fans of water and land mingling. Here, the river begins to forget its boundaries. It no longer moves in a single thread, but spreads into many arms. It branches like veins, like tree roots, like thoughts unraveling in twilight. These deltas are among the richest places on earth. Soil is thick. Birds gather in flocks. Fish rise in abundance. Reeds whisper to the wind. The river, nearing its end, gives everything it has. In these places, water and land blend so completely that it's hard to say where one ends and the other begins. Wetlands, swamps, estuaries, they are all born of this union, and in them life thrives. Frogs call in pulses, cranes step in silence, lotus flowers bloom, everything softens, everything belongs. The river is no longer racing, it is resting, unfolding, preparing for its final embrace. But even now, the pull of the sea grows stronger. The water begins to taste of salt. The tides push back, breathing into the river's mouth. The two meet, not with violence, but with curiosity, fresh and salt, mingling, river and ocean, touching for the first time. It is here, in the estuary, that memory becomes echo. The river speaks, and the sea replies. Science calls this meeting brackish water, that is both and neither, a blend, a threshold. It is a place of transformation. Organisms here adapt in marvelous ways. Some fish switch their biology as they move between fresh and salt. Plants learn to filter salt through their roots. Crabs, oysters, and mussels root themselves in the mud, turning tides into nourishment. Here, in this blur, change becomes art. The estuary becomes a nursery. Young fish hide among reeds. Shrimp drift with the current. Plankton bloom in clouds. It is a place of beginning and ending at once. The river is ending, but not dying. It is passing on its gifts. What it has gathered across mountains and plains, it now offers to the sea minerals, warmth, stories. It gives them all. To stand at this edge is to feel a different kind of time. Not the ticking of hours, but the slow rhythm of cycles. Water rising and falling, salinity shifting, light changing angle. Life here moves to the beat of something older than calendars, moon-pulled tides, and sun-marked seasons. And here, too, we meet ourselves. We watch the water come and go, and we recognize the pattern in our own breath, in our letting go, in our returning. The river's journey mirrors our own. We begin small, unnoticed. We gather experience, wisdom, loss. We change course, slow, down, deepen. And at last, we reach a place where we can offer all we've held, all we've carried, to something larger than ourselves. The river does not fear the ocean. It longs for it. All its movement, all its song, all its giving has pointed to this moment. The joining, the remembering, the becoming. So when we sit by a river and watch it widen, when we see it curve toward the horizon, we are watching not just geography, but destiny. The river dreams of the sea, not because it is empty, but because it is full of journeys taken, lessons learned, beauty seen, and the sea, waiting patiently, welcomes it. This is the river's truth. It does not hold on, it flows. And in that flow, it becomes more than water. It becomes wisdom. And wisdom, like water, moves forward, even as it remembers. Now the river nears its end, not as a finish, but as a soft return. Its voice, once crisp with mountain laughter, now murmurs, low and wide, wrapped in the salt-laced breath of the sea. It does not resist what comes next. It opens, it slows, it blends. This is not surrender, but fulfillment. The river has traveled far, and it is ready to become part of something larger. No longer only a thread, but now a part of the vast breathing fabric of the ocean. The water is different here. It shifts with tides, sways with moonlight, reflects stars instead of stones. The river remembers the crispness of glaciers, the hush of forests, the hush of twilight in forgotten fields. And as it moves into the sea, it carries those memories. With it not lost, but softened, dissolved into a wider pulse. This is what the sea offers, not forgetting, but expansion. The river becomes part of the whole, a note inside a symphony, a droplet inside a wave. Some rivers meet the sea gently, curling into calm bays or drifting through wide estuaries. Others rush in, their currents still strong, colliding with surf, mixing foam with silt. But all rivers, whether gentle or wild, seek the same thing: connection. The longing that began as a single drop sliding from a high leaf is finally answered, and in that joining, something beautiful happens. The ocean does not keep the river still, it moves it. It pulls the fresh water out into tides, lifts it into mist, spins it into storm. The river, now ocean, becomes cloud, becomes rain, becomes river again. The cycle continues, patient and infinite. No part of the river is ever truly lost. It simply changes form. This transformation is not just poetic, it is science, too. The water that evaporates from the sea becomes part of the atmosphere. It rides on winds across continents. It falls as snow in high places, begins again. Molecules that once brushed a child's fingertips in a river's bend may fall decades later as rain in another country. In this way, the river lives many lives. It travels without maps. It returns without footsteps. And this is how the river teaches us something tender: that movement is not the opposite of home, that return does not always look like arrival, that we too are part of cycles larger than our understanding. We begin in small moments. We gather, we flow, we offer, and eventually we let go. In many cultures, rivers are sacred, not because of their power, but because of their patience. They are teachers in motion, poets in flow. In India, the Ganges is believed to cleanse not just the body, but the soul. In Africa, the Niger is called the River of Kings. In the Americas, rivers are honored in dances, songs, and prayers. Everywhere, people have understood that rivers are not just water, they are stories that remember us. Even when dammed, diverted, polluted, the river waits. It listens. It looks for cracks. It finds a way. It is not angry, it is certain. A river cannot be stopped, only paused. And even then, its memory continues, in groundwater, in marsh, in the quiet soaking of root and rock. You cannot silence something that is made of movement. And though humans have reshaped rivers, bent them to serve our fields, our cities, our engines, the river still moves with grace. It still offers, it still arrives. There is a kindness in that persistence, a quiet forgiveness in its flow. If we choose to listen, the river still sings. Children born beside rivers often learn to read its surface before they read books. They know the meaning of ripples, of color, of driftwood angles. They walk in water with curiosity, not fear. They learn that the world is always moving, that time can be touched, and that beauty is often quiet. And those who return to rivers later in life come for something different. Not play, but peace. Not discovery, but remembering. They sit on the bank and watch light shift on water. Hear the hush of current. Feel something soften inside. The river becomes a companion, a listener, a mirror for all the things we cannot say aloud. Artists paint rivers. Writers describe them. Musicians mimic their flow. But the river does not need translation. It speaks in feeling, in rhythm, in the way it carries and releases, embraces and lets go. It is a language we understand before words, a presence that precedes instruction. In dreams, rivers often symbolize transition, change, passage, but they are also comfort. They tell us that we are allowed to move, that change does not mean loss, that we are allowed to forget for a while, to meander, to take the long way, and still we will arrive. And when we finally meet the sea, when we, like the river, reach the edge of ourselves, we may not vanish, we may expand, we may find that we are not ending, but entering something wider, something beyond our shape, something that welcomes all we have been. So, if you ever feel lost, sit beside a river. Watch it shimmer in the light. Let its song settle in your breath. Touch the water, even if it's cold. Listen. The river remembers what it's like to begin. It remembers how to carry sorrow, how to keep joy moving, how to reach the sea, even when the path is long. Because rivers do not run in straight lines. They curve, they pause, they spill, and yet they arrive. So will you begin with a drop, small, round, and perfect, hanging from the tip of a leaf just after the rain. It trembles, holding the sky in its curved skin. Inside this drop is a story older than memory of stars, of soil, of light turned to liquid. It falls, not with a crash, but with a quiet certainty, joining the earth below. And though it disappears into the dirt, its journey is only just beginning. This single drop may seep slowly into the ground, slipping past grains of sand, curling through roots, sinking into the dark. Or it might be lapped up by the tongue of a deer, swallowed into breath and blood. It may freeze into a snowflake, fall again, melt again, and each time it moves, it gathers stories. Inside your body, there are thousands of these drops, in your blood, in your cells, in your breath. They move as you move. They hold the minerals of your meals, the whispers of your ancestors. Every sip of water you've ever taken has become part of you, and long after it leaves, it will become part of something else. The journey of a drop is never finished. Scientists have tried to trace the path of water through the world. They call it the hydrologic cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection. But a drop does not care for steps or diagrams. It simply moves where it must, following temperature, gravity, and wind. It obeys no borders, no nations, no names. It travels freely, carried by cloud and current, by creature and root. This freedom makes water a silent thread between all living things. The drop that sits on a cactus in the desert may one day rest in a glacier. The vapor rising from your tea may fall as rain over a jungle. A molecule in your tear may once have been part of a lake, a stream, an ancient tide. In this way, We are all drinking the same memory, recycled, reshaped, renewed, and inside this journey, the drop sees everything. It touches leaf and feather, stone and bone. It carries signals within the body, soothes the fire of fever, cools the flush of emotion. It listens without ears, comforts without arms. It slips between cracks, finds hidden spaces, fills what is empty. There is nothing rigid about it, yet it is strong enough to carve canyons. There is nothing loud about it, yet it speaks to everything. In the clouds, a drop becomes weightless. It floats, held by wind and chill, forming soft shapes above the earth. Scientists study these clouds with satellites and sensors, but even the most complex instruments cannot fully measure what each drop has seen. For in clouds are traces of distant forests, far-off fires, the breath of animals. When it rains, the drop falls not as a stranger, but as a return, and then, if lucky, it may be caught by a leaf. Leaves do not simply wait for water, they open to it. Their surfaces are textured to capture even the smallest beads. Inside, cells awaken at the drops. Touch. Photosynthesis begins. Sugars are made. Growth. A single drop can feed a forest. In wetlands, drops gather in quiet abundance. They sit among reeds and frogs, reflect dragonflies and dusk. These waters do not rush. They hold, they filter, they cleanse. A single drop may rest here for days, slipping slowly through moss and mud, being purified by stillness. Wetlands are the earth's lungs, and drops are their breath. Sometimes a drop becomes vapor again, rising gently in morning light. Then, with others, it forms a cloud once more. This is condensation, where the unseen becomes seen, where potential becomes form. The journey of a drop is full of such transformations, not once, but endlessly, and yet the drop remembers, not in thought, but in chemistry, in temperature, in salinity, in pH. These tiny markers tell the story of where the drop has been, what it has touched. Scientists can read this using tools. To trace a drop's history, they find molecules that have traveled across oceans, across decades. In Antarctica, inside ancient ice, they find air trapped in drops from 100,000 years ago. Seeds that have waited years begin to sprout. Cracks in the earth soften. Lizards lift their heads. A single drop may be enough to wake life. In these places, people speak of water with reverence. They dig deep wells. They share what they find. It joins billions of others, moving with tides, pulled by moonlight. It drifts through coral reefs, through the songs of whales, through fields of plankton that make the air we breathe. It might rise in the crest of a wave, touch the sail of a boat, fall back. Even here, in this vastness, its journey continues. And in your home, when you turn on a tap, the drop is there. Clear, familiar, unnoticed. But its path has been long. It may have been filtered, treated, guided. It may have come from deep underground, where it waited for centuries, or from a lake fed by ancient snow. What you drink is not just water, is the journey of time itself. This is what the drop carries, not just moisture, but memory. Not just function, but meaning. In every drop is a story that cannot be written, only felt, a journey that does not end, only changes shape. And when you cup it in your hand, watch it bead and roll. You are holding something sacred. The next time rain falls, Hold out your palm. Let one drop land. Watch how it catches light, how it moves. That it has touched places you will never see. That it has fed life, carved stone, cooled fire. And now it rests with you, just for a moment, and then it moves on. Let us follow the drop further now. It slips from skin to soil, soaking downward through layers of earth. At first, the path is soft, through fallen leaves, through mulch and root and worm. But deeper still, the soil becomes denser, darker, colder. The drop must press on, drawn, not by will, but by gravity, by the quiet pull of depth. This is infiltration, and for the drop, it is a return to the unseen dot in this place. Light cannot reach, and yet the drop finds company. Other molecules join it, nutrients from decayed plants, minerals from weathered stone, trace chemicals left behind by animals long gone. Together, they move through narrow spaces between grains of sand, filling every crevice. The soil breathes. Around them, even in darkness, life persists. Tiny bacteria live here, breaking down what is left, recycling it into the body of the earth. The drop listens to their silent work. Further still, the drop enters the groundwater. It has left the surface world now. This is the aquifron underground river that does not flow like surface streams, but seeps, inch by inch, through porous rock. Some water here is ancient, sealed away for centuries or more. It has not touched the air in ages. It has waited, patiently, nestled in the belly of the planet. Some scientists call it fossil water. Some call it the Earth's slowest breath. Here, the drop rests. It may wait years, even decades, before moving again. Or it may be pulled up suddenly through a well, drawn by pumps and pipes into human hands. In cities, drops from aquifers are filtered, cleaned, and directed. They travel through valves and treatment plants, through tubes that wind beneath streets. In the span of a single day, a drop can move from ancient stone to a kitchen faucet. And even here, after all that distance, it still carries the quietness of its journey. Not all drops follow this path. Some rise instead. They are drawn upward by roots, lifted into the bodies of plants. Water is the courier of life within every stem, every petal, every blade of grass. It enters the roots and climbs through capillaries thinner than hair, pulled by evaporation at the leaves. The process is called transpiration, and it is one of the great quiet miracles of nature. A tree drinks with its feet and breathes with its leaves, and the drop, in becoming part of that breath, joins the atmosphere again. In this vapor form, the drop is invisible, but it does not vanish. It floats upward, carried by warm currents, gathering with others. As it rises, it cools, condensation begins. Molecules cling to tiny particles in the air, dust, pollen, salt, and form droplets once more. They gather into clouds, soft and heavy with potential. And when the cloud can hold no more, the drops fall again. Rain, snow, sleet, the return of touch to earth. Sometimes the drop lands on ice. In polar regions, snow piles endlessly, pressing itself into glaciers. There, a drop might be frozen into blue-white stillness for hundreds of years. Inside glaciers, drops are packed tight, forming layers that can be read like tree rings. Scientists drill deep cores to study them, extracting long cylinders of ancient ice. Within each frozen drop is a clue about the atmosphere, about temperature. about the breath of volcanoes or the soot of fire. The drop may also fall on a mountain, land in a shallow hollow, and begin to flow downhill again. Gravity calls. Always gravity calls. And so the drop moves over rock, through moss, tumbling down waterfalls, forming part of a spring. Along the way, it erodes the landscape, polishing stone, carrying sediment. It helps to carve canyons, shape valleys, feed rivers. In these rivers, the drop finds motion. It dances over rocks, flows with fish, weaves among reeds. It joins millions of others in the forward march toward the sea. Scientists call this runoff, but the drop does not rush. It meanders. It pauses in pools, spins in eddies, reflects clouds. It feels the shift of seasons, the surge of spring melt, the slow hush of winter freeze. It listens to frogs at night, to birds at dawn, to the wind as it brushes the surface. Eventually, the river widens, and the drop may enter a lake. Here, the world stills. Waves lap gently. Light dives deep into the water. Life's algae bloom. Fish glide. Insects skim. The drop may stay for a while in this basin, suspended in the hush. Lakes are like lungs for the land, breathing water in and out, holding it gently before sending it forward once more. In cities, the drop may find itself caught by storm drains, funneled beneath streets. Urban water has a different journey through tunnels, treatment plants, reservoirs. But even here, among the structures of steel and stone, the drop remembers softness. It remembers rain. It remembers leaf and root, and the weightless drift through clouds. And everywhere the drop goes, it carries traces. Not just chemicals, but impressions of movement, of contact, of time. Scientists can now detect these traces using isotopes. They follow water through soil, through bodies, through weather. They find that the journey of a single drop is not linear, but looping, shifting, responsive. It is shaped by terrain, by life, by the warmth of the sun and the shadow of a tree. Even within you, the journey of the drop continues. When you exhale, it rises, and when it leaves you, it returns to the earth again. There is no loss in this cycle, only change, only motion, only memory wrapped in movement. A single drop, then, is never just itself. It is a thread in a great weaving. It binds cloud to soil, river to root, past to present. It is a traveler and a teacher. It tells us that nothing is still, that everything flows, that even the smallest presence can leave a deep and lasting trace. And somewhere, even now, a new drop is beginning its journey, falling from the edge of a leaf, slipping into soil, beginning the long, slow spiral through world and time, carried by wind, by root, by blood, and in its silent way, it remembers everything. Now let us imagine the drop nearing the close of one journey and the beginning of countless others. It has moved through earth and sky, touched tree and bone, flowed through rivers and breath, and still it is not finished. Water does not end. It transforms. It passes on. The drop, now part of the sea, becomes something wider than itself. It joins the endless movement of tides, the pulse of salt and current, the heartbeat of the deep dot in the ocean. The drop is surrounded. It is no longer alone, but part of a rhythm that stretches around the globe. Surface water warms in the sun, dances with wind, shimmers with moonlight. Beneath, cold currents drift like thoughts, too deep, to name. Together, these layers move in patterns shaped by Earth's spin, by continental shelf, by temperature and time. The drop may be caught in a gyre, circling for years. It may sink slowly, drawn into the abyss. It may rise again on a warm current, gliding toward the surface. Within the sea, the drop becomes many things. It may rest inside the body of a jellyfish, glowing blue in midnight waters. It may cradle a grain of salt, born from the weathering of stone. It may become part of a whale's song, vibrating through dark water to reach distant ears. It has surrendered its shape to become part of something vast and living. This is the quiet truth of all journeys. They are not about reaching an end, but about becoming. And so, the drop, having touched stars and stone and skin, now touches everything, even here. Even now, it continues to give. It helps shape clouds above the sea. It helps feed coral reefs below. It carries heat from one continent to another, balancing the world's weather. And when the time is right, it rises. Carried by warmth, the drop becomes vapor again. It joins the sky, softens into mist, begins to gather, and it falls, this time, perhaps, as snow, landing on a high slope where it settles into silence, pressed into the slow memory of glacier. Or perhaps it falls into the leaves of a rainforest, sliding along veins of green, becoming part of a tree's long drink. Or it lands in a puddle outside a window, watched by a child who does not know they are seeing something ancient. Wherever it falls, the drop begins again. This is what the journey of a drop teaches us, that endings are illusions, that everything returns, that nothing is lost, only changed. The water that shaped valleys now rests in clouds. The rain that fed the roots of ancient trees now falls on new soil. The drop does not need to remember where it has been. Its presence carries that knowing. Even within us, the journey continues. When we drink, we welcome the world. When we sweat, we give it back. Our tears, our breath, our blood, all of it is part of the great movement. We are not separate from this cycle. We are woven into it. The water in us once traveled through dinosaurs, through ancient forests, through the hearts of stars. And long after we are gone, it will continue. It will carry us forward, drop by drop. Poets speak of water as purity. Scientists speak of it as solvent. Healers speak of it as cleansing. But perhaps it is something else too. Perhaps water is remembrance, a vessel for the world's oldest story, a language written not in letters, but in movement, in rain, in rivers, in breath. And this is why, when we hear the rain, we feel a hush, why a stream soothes us, why the ocean draws us close. It is not only sound or rhythm, it is recognition. Somewhere inside, we know this story. Somewhere in the flowing silence of water, we remember our beginning. So the next time you hold a glass of water, pause. Look at it not as a thing, but as a traveler. Think of where it has been, of what it has seen, the roots it has touched, the skies it has known. Think of the creatures it has cradled, the mountains it has carved. You are holding history in your hand, and when you drink, know this: you are continuing the journey. You are taking in a drop that has lived 1,000 lives and offering it another. What you do next will shape where it goes. What you feel, what you breathe, what you give it will carry forward. This is the sacredness of water. not its clarity or coolness or weight, but its movement, its memory, its willingness to continue, endlessly, gently, faithfully, one drop and another still. And so, the drop becomes rain, rain becomes river, river becomes sea, sea becomes mist, mist becomes breath, breath becomes thought, and the thought, soft as dew, returns to the world once more. One drop, always moving, always remembering, in the quiet cradle of valleys and forests, far from the rushing of rivers or the roar of the sea. Lakes lie still. They do not run or race, they wait. Smooth as mirrors, calm as sleep, they hold the sky on their backs. A lake is not simply a body of water, is a breath held between heartbeats. It is a place where time forgets to hurry, where the earth pauses, closes its eyes, and listens to its own silence. Each lake begins in stillness. Some are born of glaciers, massive sheets of ancient ice that carved deep hollows in the land. When the ice melted, it left behind basins that slowly filled with water. Others were formed by fire, as volcanic craters cooled and invited rain. Some arose from the collapse of caverns or the gentle swelling of groundwater. However they began, they all became vessels for water, for life. For memory to stand beside a lake is to stand beside something older than history, quieter than thought. The surface may seem motionless, but beneath it, the water breathes. It moves in layers, stirred, not by wind alone, but by light and temperature. In the warmth of summer, the top grows sunlit and lively, while the bottom stays cold and dark. In autumn, as the air cools, these layers mix. The lake turns over. Oxygen sinks. Nutrients rise. Life shifts. The lake rearranges itself in silence. Scientists, lakes are not flat mirrors. They are three-dimensional stories written in temperature, dissolved gases, and invisible currents. A single drop in the top layer might one day drift to the depths and rise again. In this movement, the lake cleanses itself, feeds itself, remembers its own rhythm. The life within a lake is unlike the life of rivers or oceans. It is slower, more patient. At dawn, dragonflies skim the surface, their wings tracing ripples. Beneath, fish glide through shafts of light. Frogs croak from lily pads. Tiny water bugs dance just below the surface, paddling in quiet zigzags. Every sound is softened. Every movement feels like part of a dream. In deeper parts, where light cannot reach, ancient fish move in slow arcs. In the silt below, layers build mud and leaves, pollen and bones. Each year adds a page to the lake's quiet journal. Scientists can read these layers, find traces of ancient fires, lost forests, shifting climates. In this way, lakes become timekeepers, memory holders, silent historians of the land they rest upon. And the edges of a lake, its gentle margins, are places of extraordinary richness. Here reeds grow thick, willows lean in, turtles rest on stones. Birds wade through shallows, dipping beaks in search of minnows. These zones are called littoral zones, and they are the lungs of the lake. Plants here produce oxygen, shelter eggs, buffer floods. Life congregates here not by accident, but by invitation. The edge of a lake is where stillness and life meet two people. Lakes have long been sacred. In ancient cultures, lakes were seen as portals, places where gods slept, where Spirits passed between worlds. Offerings were thrown into their depths. Coins, weapons, flowers, not to lose them, but to give them. A lake, with its deep quiet, seems to understand secrets. It keeps them without telling. Even today, people retreat to lakes for peace. They build cabins along their shores. They paddle gently in canoes. They wake early to see the mist rise. A lake in the morning is something holy. The water holds the night's chill. The sky reflects in colors too soft to name. Birds sing. Fish ripple the glassy surface. And always there is quiet, not emptiness, but presence. A fullness that does not need words. The science of lakes is called limnology. It studies everything from algae to temperature gradients, from pH balance to aquatic insects. But no measurement can capture the feeling of sitting beside a lake. The way the air feels cooler, the way thoughts slow down, the way your breath begins to match the pace of water lapping against stone. These things are not science. They are knowing, felt, not taught. Some lakes are shallow and warm, stirred easily by wind. Others are deep and cold, barely touched by weather above. Some are colored by minerals: turquoise, emerald, slate gray. Others are so clear you can see the bottom, even meters below. Some are dotted with islands. Some are rimmed with rock. Each lake is shaped not only by geology, but by the light it catches, the wind it listens to, the trees that lean in to speak. And lakes are vulnerable. Their quiet can be broken. Too much fertilizer and algae blooms turn the water green, stealing oxygen from fish. Too much sediment and the depths cloud, burying eggs and insects. Too many boats and the surface loses its softness. Noise echoes where there should be hush. Like all beautiful things, lakes need protection, not only from pollution, but from forgetfulness. Yet even when harmed, lakes try to heal. Wetlands at their edges filter toxins. Microbes in their mud break down what does not belong. Plants soak up what they can. Stillness in nature is not weakness, it is resilience. A lake absorbs, adjusts, recovers, slowly but surely. And if we let it rest, it returns to calm. Some lakes are seasonal ephemeral pools that appear only after rain, then vanish in dry months. Others are permanent, fed by glaciers or springs. But all lakes remind us of something important, that stillness has a role, that slowness can hold life, that depth does not always need to move to be meaningful. And so, when you next stand beside a lake, do not rush. Let your eyes soften. Let your breath match the water's rhythm. Watch how the surface shifts with the breeze. Listen to the calls of birds across the water. Sit with the silence, not to fill it, but to feel it. The lake does not need your voice. It needs your presence. And if you are quiet enough, it may offer you its story, not in words, but in reflection. Let us go deeper now, beyond the shimmering surface, beneath the layers of light and shadow, where the lake becomes more than a mirror. Down where temperature shifts slowly, where sunlight fades into blue and then into nothing. The lake holds its truest form. It does not speak here. It does not move in ripples. It waits. And in that waiting, it listens to the land above, to the sky reflected, to the time slipping silently through the water. This stillness is not empty. It is dense with life and thought. In the top layers, called the epilemion, the sun still touches. Warmth gathers. Algae float in quiet blooms. Tiny crustaceans flutter their limbs, drifting with unseen currents. Insects dance just below the surface, casting long shadows that flicker like the hands of a clock. Here, the lake remembers light. It holds the flavor of breeze, the echo of birdsong. But further down lies the metalimnion. From above cannot pass. This thin layer divides the lake into two distinct worlds. Above, energy. Below, stillness. The drop in temperature is sharp, like crossing a threshold into another realm. Here, the water begins to slow, the sounds fade, the light dims, movement becomes thoughtful. Below even that is the hypolimnion, the deep cold. Here, time thickens. No currents stir, no wind reaches. The lake breathes slower. The oxygen brought down during seasonal mixing nourishes the life that waits. Fish adapted to this quiet glide through the dark. Bacteria in the sediment break down fallen leaves, lost feathers, the memory of autumns long gone. It is a place of soft decay, of release, of transformation. What falls here does not vanish. It becomes part of the lake's story, and that story is told in layers. Scientists study the sediments that settle at the bottom, reading them like pages. In a deep, quiet book, a layer of ash from a distant fire, a fine silt from a flood, pollen grains from flowers no longer seen on the shore. Even the shape of oxygen molecules can tell the tale of long-ago summers. In this way, the lake remembers not just its own seasons, but the life of the world around it. Some lakes are so clear they show their depth with pride. In Crater Lake in Oregon, the water is so pure that visibility can extend over 40 meters. Down, the lake fills an ancient volcano, and no river feeds it only rain and snow. This makes it not just still, but self-contained. A sky bowl reflecting both stars and history. Others are hidden in forests, in tundra, in deserts, small, nameless lakes that appear on no map. They hold the stories of animals who drink at their edge, of trees who lean toward their moisture, of people who once built fires on their banks and now are gone. In these quiet places, you may feel as though you are the first to find them, but the lake has always been there, waiting, listening. Even frozen lakes breathe. Beneath the ice, water continues to move slowly, like thought in sleep. Fish remain active. Gases build up from the decay below. And when spring comes, the thaw is not a sudden moment, but a gentle release. The ice cracks, light returns, life stirs. The lake, having endured the long stillness, exhales. In the north, there are lakes that never fully thaw. They are called perennially ice-covered lakes, and they exist in a state of suspended thought. Scientists study them to understand alien worlds, for they resemble the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Life in these places survives under thick ice in dark water, with no sunlight, just chemical reactions, ancient resilience. The lake, even when sealed, continues to carry breath. Around the world, lakes are indicators of climate, of balance, of change. When glaciers melt too quickly, lakes swell. When heat rises, oxygen falls. Fish suffer, algae bloom. The lake signals imbalance, not with cries, but with color, with scent, with silence. Green where it should be clear, still where it should be rippling. It asks us to notice, to respond. Yet, for all its sensitivity, the lake is also generous. It offers water to animals and people alike. It regulates temperature for nearby forests. It slows floods. It cradles reflection. People build around it, not for power, but for peace. A lake slows us down. It invites us to step into time differently, to sit, to watch, to breathe with the world. In some traditions, lakes are used in ritual, for reflection, for release. People cast stones into water to let go of grief. They light candles and float them on the surface, sending light into the dark. In others, lakes are believed to be mirrors of the soul. The clearer the water, the clearer the mind. The deeper the lake, the deeper the self. Even in language, lakes carry weight. We say still as a lake to mean calm. We say deep as a lake to mean wise. Poets describe the heart as a lake capable of holding storms, of settling, of reflecting light. The metaphors come easily because the truth is already there. A lake is not just water. It is presence. It is patience. It is listening made visible. And this is perhaps the lake's greatest gift. It does not demand attention, but rewards it. The more you sit with it, the more you see. The way light moves across its surface in thin silver ribbons. The way insects ripple the stillness without breaking it. The way fish breach and vanish in a single breath. The way fog gathers in the early morning, wrapping the lake in softness. So much of life rushes. So much of the world demands. The lake does neither. It waits. It holds. It accepts. Whether you arrive with joy or sorrow, whether you speak or stay silent, the lake meets you exactly as you are. And in doing so, it teaches you something precious, that stillness is not the absence of life, but the space in which it grows. To be with a lake is to be with a quiet friend, one who says nothing but understands everything, one who reflects not only what is above, but what is within. Let us return to the surface now, where the lake meets the sky and the world opens wide. Here, light moves across the water like breath. Sunrise spills gold across its skin. Sunset pulls shadows into deep colors. And between these quiet bookends of day, the lake reflects everything: the drift of clouds, the wings of passing birds, the curve of a tree leaning in. The lake does not hold these things, not truly. It receives them, reflects them, lets them go, always letting go. The lake's surface is ever-changing, yet never hurried. A breeze might brush it, lifting tiny waves, dimpling its stillness. Rain may fall, creating a temporary constellation of rings. Leaves may land softly and float, spinning as they drift. But when the wind stops, when the rain ends, when the leaf sinks, stillness returns. Always, stillness returns. The lake teaches us that calm is not the absence of disturbance, but the ability to return to it. Along the shore, life continues in its gentle rhythm. Reeds sway with every sigh of wind. Ducks paddle across the water, trailing delicate wakes. Behind them, a heron stands motionless, its long legs hidden beneath the surface, its eyes fixed on the silence below. The lake does not announce these things. It simply allows them, makes space for them, holds them in soft, reflective quiet. Humans, too, are drawn to this edge, not just for beauty, but for belonging. People walk paths beside lakes, hand in hand, lost in thought or conversation. They fish not just for food, but for stillness. They write journals on docks. They nap in hammocks where the water's hush replaces noise. They build cabins, not for escape, but for return to something simpler, to something known. Children throw stones into lakes, not to break them, but to watch the ripples. There is joy in watching movement echo outward, circle upon circle, expanding, fading. It reminds us that our actions matter, but that they also soften, that everything we do touches the world, then quiets again. The lake teaches forgiveness in this way, not loudly, just gently. In the cold of winter, many lakes freeze. Ice spreads across the surface, sealing in silence. Beneath, life continues. Fish slow their movements, plants rest. The world above grows quiet, snow falling in thick hushes. The lake becomes a frozen breath, a held note in a long, quiet song. In some places, people skate across its surface. In others, they walk out onto it just to feel the stillness beneath their feet. When spring comes, the ice melts, not in one moment, but slowly. Cracks form, water returns, frogs sing again, trees lean closer. Life rises through the thaw like a remembered melody. The lake stirs, breathes in deeply, begins again. No announcement, just quiet persistence. The cycle returns, and so too do we. Each time we visit a lake, we bring our own reflections. Some carry burdens, others carry dreams. The lake holds them all. It does not judge, it does not explain. It simply reflects. And in doing so, it invites us to see more clearly, not just the sky above, but the self within. There are lakes so remote they have no names. Lakes nestled in mountains, seen only by birds and those willing to walk long hours in silence. These lakes are pure, untouched. They do not ask for notice. Yet, when found, they offer something priceless. A reminder that the world does not need us to watch it to be beautiful. That silence exists whether we listen or not. That peace is always there, waiting. Other lakes lie in cities, surrounded by buildings, roads, the sound of human life. Yet even here, they offer sanctuary. A place for lunch breaks beneath trees, a spot for swans to glide, a breath of coolness in heat. The lake becomes an oasis, not only of water, but of time, of slowness, of attention, a gentle boundary between what rushes and what waits. We often measure lakes by size, by depth, by clarity, but these are not the things that matter most. A small lake, hidden behind a bend in the trail, can change a heart. A muddy pond, full of frogs and laughter, can hold 1,000 memories. The importance of a lake is not in its statistics, but in its stillness, in what it gives without asking. As climate changes, lakes speak. They shrink or swell. They warm, they cloud. Some disappear. These changes are quiet, but they matter. A dried lake bed is not just missing water, it is missing sound, reflection, life. When a lake is lost, something ancient is forgotten. That is why protecting them matters, not just for science, but for soul. And yet, lakes teach us resilience. Even after drought, after pollution, after absence, if given time, they return. Water comes back, life rises, stillness softens its way home. This is the lesson the lake offers endlessly, that healing is slow but possible, that quiet is powerful, that presence is enough. So, the next time you come to a lake stop, do not rush to take a picture or throw a stone. Just sit. Let the water reflect not only the world, but you. Watch how the sky stretches across its skin, how trees lean in as if sharing secrets, how birds pass overhead, briefly mirrored and gone. Breathe with it. Be still with it, because the lake is not a destination. It is a companion, a listener, a teacher made of water and silence. And in its presence, we remember the parts of ourselves that do not shout, do not hurry, do not break, the parts that reflect, that soften, that breathe. The lake waits, so you can remember how to, somewhere high in the sky, where the air turns thin and the sun feels more like a memory than warmth. A crystal begins to form. Invisible vapor gathers around a tiny particle, a speck of dust, a fleck of pollen in the hush of sub-zero air. A snowflake is born, not in haste, but in patience. Molecule by molecule, it builds itself, branching out in perfect, silent symmetry. Each edge reflects the cold. Each arm remembers the cloud. And before it falls, it is already a story told in the secret language of ice. Snowflakes are not just frozen water. They are architecture, memory, breath turned to geometry. Scientists call their six-fold symmetry a miracle of physics, each branch forming in response to humidity, temperature, and time. No two are exactly the same, not because nature tries to make them different, but because the world shifts with every breath. Each snowflake is shaped by its journey through the sky, by the way the wind turned, by the warmth of an updraft. Some spin, some dance in soft spirals, touching others mid-air, joining and partying like shy strangers. The world below waits, unaware, while thousands, millions of these tiny stars fall in silence. Snow does not announce itself. It arrives like a secret whispered to the ground, and when it touches down, the flake does not land with force. It lands with grace. It joins others, layering, softening. Snow reshapes the world without sound. Hills become smooth. Trees wear white cloaks. Roofs blur at the edges. The sharpness of lines disappears. A snow-covered world is a quieter world, not asleep, but listening. In polar regions, snow does not simply fall and melt. It stays. It compacts, layer by layer, becoming fern, then glacier. Ice that holds time. Scientists drill cores into this frozen archive, pulling up tubes of ancient snowfall. In the bubbles trapped within, they find air from thousands of years ago. They find traces of volcanoes, of forest fires, of early human breath. Snow, once fallen, becomes memory. The crystals themselves are delicate, but together, snow can be strong. It insulates the soil, keeping roots from freezing. It muffles footsteps, slows predators, shelters animals who burrow beneath. Under the snow, mice build tunnels, bears sleep, seeds wait. Snow is not absence, it is a pause, a protection, a soft covering that tells the world, not yet, rest first, and snow speaks. Not in words, but in sound. Fresh snow absorbs noise, wrapping the world in hush. Walk through it, and your footsteps whisper. Drop something, and it makes no echo. This silence is not empty, it is full, full of stillness, of space, of the gentle absence of hurry. Snow invites you to move slower, to listen harder, to feel more. Each flake, though small, carries light. Snow reflects most of the sunlight that touches it. That is why a snowy landscape glows, even on cloudy days. That glow is not just brightness, it is memory scattered in all directions. Light that doesn't sink, but bounces, touching everything twice. When you walk through snow, you walk through a world filled with echoed light, and beneath it all, ice forms. Lakes freeze from the top down, sealing their warmth below. Rivers, slow, glaze over, crack open and refreeze. Ponds become mirrors for the winter sky. Ice is not still, it shifts, it groans, it speaks, it expands and contracts with temperature. It grows from the edges inward. In some places, it freezes clear, and you can see all the way to the bottom. In others, bubbles freeze mid-rise, like thoughts caught before they form. Scientists study the structure of ice with microscopes, measuring its patterns, its purity, its imperfections. They find that ice is never truly uniform. It always carries a memory of how it froze, how fast, at what temperature, under what pressure. These marks remain invisible to the eye, but written into the crystal lattice. Ice is not blank. It is a document, and ice travels. Glaciers, made of countless fallen snowflakes, move slowly down mountains, carving valleys as they go. They grind rock to flour, push boulders like pebbles, leave behind lakes when they melt. The world we live in was shaped by ice, by its patience, by its weight, by its long memory of winter. Even now, glaciers inch forward, pulling the past into the present. Inside a single snowflake, the story of this journey begins. From vapor to crystal, to flake, to snowpack, to glacier, and eventually to melt, to river, to sea, to cloud again. Ice, like all water, is never lost. It only changes. It is motion slowed to stillness. It is breath turned to structure. And snow that cuts sideways. Between wet snow and dry. Between snow that packs and snow that floats. A conversation between sky and earth, temperature and time. Children catch snowflakes on their tongues, not because they are hungry, but because they are curious. They want to taste the sky. They want to feel something that was cloud only moments ago. That impulse to reach out and receive's ancient. We do not lose it, we only forget, until the snow falls again. And when it does, the world becomes new. The familiar becomes strange. Roads vanish, trees wear lace. Softer, the sounds of cars and feet are replaced by the crunch of boots, the rustle of coats, the occasional laugh. Caught in breath, this transformation is more than weather. It is a shift in time. Snow slows things down. It asks us to wait, to listen, to stay close. It gives permission to be quiet. And in that quiet, something stirs. Not just the desire for fire or soup or stories, but the memory of something deeper. Of a world that speaks slowly. Of a language written in cold. A snowflake is not loud. It does not insist. It drifts. It lands. It waits. And in that waiting, it teaches, not in words, but in wonder. Let us drift deeper into the world of ice not. The moment it falls, but the days and months that follow, when the snow settles into layers, when frost clings to windows, like whispers, and when the world seems to breathe more slowly, in these long stretches of cold ice becomes a kind of language. It creaks beneath your feet, it etches feathers on glass. It fills the air with a sharpness that both bites and clears. It tells you where the wind has been. It remembers the shape of breath as snow becomes compacted. Each flake loses its crystal shape and binds with others. This process creates granular transition between snow and glacial ice. It takes years, sometimes centuries, for fern to compress fully into the solid blue ice that fills glaciers. And yet, from the moment of its fall, each flake is already part of that slow becoming. Tundra, this process unfolds in vast, silent fields. There, glaciers spread like frozen rivers. Beneath their crushing weight, land is ground down, carved smooth, etched with striations. Valleys are deepened, hills are born, mountains are softened. Ice, over time, becomes an artist of the earth. And yet, even in motion, glaciers are not lifeless. Within their frozen depths, life endures. Tiny organisms, bacteria, algae live in liquid veins that form along pressure cracks. Some feed on minerals in the ice itself. Not end life, it holds it in pause. Not all ice is ancient. Some forms quickly, like frost on a window. Scientists call these patterns dendrites, feathered and delicate, branching like trees. No two are the same, not because of randomness, but because of precision. The structure of each frost crystal reflects the exact temperature, humidity, and surface it formed on pap. It is a map of the moment, a sketch of the invisible dot. And when lakes freeze, they tell another story. Ice begins at the edges, then spreads. Inward, air bubbles, caught mid-rise, form chains of still breath. In places where the freeze is thin, the ice sings high, eerie tones that ripple across the surface like voices from the deep. They are real, caused by the expansion and contraction of ice as it forms and flexes. The lake becomes an instrument. Ice, a musician, playing slowly across the surface. Under this frozen skin, life continues. Fish drift slowly. Algae glow faintly in greenish shadows. Oxygen moves in tight currents. The darkness here is not complete. Some light penetrates, enough to keep the rhythm alive. Only a breath held in human life. Ice appears in rituals and memory. We carve it into sculptures that melt with time. We crack it into glasses, hear it clink, feel it chill our lips. We fear it on roads, celebrate it in rinks, break it in silence when we walk across a pond. Ice is part of us, present in our speech, in our metaphors, in our moments. And then there is thaw. Thaw does not come loudly. It begins with a drop, then another, then a trickle from the eaves. The edges of snowbanks soften. The crust on the lake darkens. Puddles form by doorsteps. Trees drip. Icicles fall, one by one. This is the language of return. The long exhale. After months of breath held tight, and though snow may fall again, the thaw has already spoken. Change is near. During this time, streams swell with meltwater. Rivers run fast and full. Water, once held, is now freed. It carries with it twigs, leaves, old secrets. It seeps into soil, waking seeds. It pools in hoofprints, in pawprints, in the gentle hollows of the forest floor. This water has memory. It has felt the sky. It has known the shape of silence. Now it sings, and the ice so strong, melts. It loses shape, not in defeat, but in transformation. A block becomes a trickle. A frost pattern becomes fog. A snowdrift becomes a stream. Ice teaches us that to let go is not to vanish, it is to change form, to continue, to soften. Somewhere, a glacier calves cracking at its edge, sending a great slab of ice into the sea. The sound is thunderous, the splash immense, and then silence again. The iceberg floats, majestic and slow, carrying centuries of cold. It will drift with currents, melt over time, release ancient air into modern wind. Even in this, there is continuity. The past entering the present, the frozen becoming fluid. In Arctic villages, people read ice like a book. They can tell by its color, its sound, its taste, how strong it is, how old. They walk across it with reverence, with knowledge passed through generations. In these places, ice is not just a season, it is a teacher. It shows how to wait, how to survive, how to listen. And so the language of ice continues unfolding in crystals, singing through cracks, whispering in melt. It does not argue, it does not rush, it does not boast. It shapes the world and then vanishes. Something that has traveled through cloud, through sky, through silence. And in that single moment, as it lands and lingers before melting, you are holding a truth too soft to speak, that all things move, that even stillness has motion, that silence, when cold enough, becomes a kind of song. Now let us linger in the hush of snow's farewell, the soft moment between winter and spring, when the last flakes fall and the earth begins to stir beneath the melt. This is the season of transition, a time when the frozen world loosens its hold and ice, ever patient, begins to surrender its shape. But in its melting, it leaves behind more than water. Beneath it, green shoots begin to press upward. Buds swell on branches. The songs of birds return one by one. It is not forgotten. It is absorbed, carried forward in the roots and rivers, in the moist breath of thawed soil. The snow that melted into puddles will rise again as vapor. The frost that kissed the window pane will soon become morning mist. Each drop released from its crystal form continues, the cycle rising, drifting, falling. This is not loss, but motion, the slow, circular rhythm of renewal. Ice, in its own quiet way, prepares the world for growth. By holding water in place through winter, it prevents floods, protects soil, allows time for rest. It seeps into aquifers, nourishes the smallest roots. Even the lakes and rivers it leaves behind hold more than moisture. They hold clarity, cooled by the long embrace of winter's hand. And people, too, change in the thaw, after months of cold. And inwardness they stretch again, open windows. But often, in the quiet corners of the mind, there remains a part that misses the snow, misses the hush, misses the way winter gave us permission to slow. For ice does what few things do. It gives the world pause. It stops the rush. It stills the surface. It invites reflection. And though its departure brings relief, it also brings a longing for the softness, the clarity, the clean white silence. That longing is a kind of gratitude, a memory gently held. They slide down valleys so slowly that a tree may grow, live, and fall while the ice has moved only a few meters. They etch the shape of the land, carry stones the size of houses, and leave behind fields of gravel and shining lakes. Even when unseen, their influence is everywhere. They are the architects of memory, building not with bricks, but with time. In these glacial zones, life adapts. Birds nest in crags above frozen rivers, and humans, if they enter, do so softly, carefully, aware that they are stepping into a place where sound does not echo the way it does elsewhere, where the cold itself. We speak of thin ice as something to fear, of breaking the ice as a way to begin. We freeze when we are scared, thaw when we warm to one another. Ice, it is both sharp and beautiful. Water rises, water freezes, breath condenses, freezes, vanishes. In this way, we are reminded that nothing stays, and it's the music of matter. To see a single snowflake melt on your skin is to witness that music in miniature. One pattern dissolving, one shape returning to flow. It reminds us that nothing we hold is ever truly ours, that beauty, like seasons, must pass through many forms before becoming whole. Artists and scientists alike are drawn to ice not because it lasts, but because it doesn't. It teaches impermanence, and in doing so, it deepens our attention. To trace the edge of a frozen puddle, to listen to the sharp ring of a blade on lake ice. These moments cannot be kept, but they can be known, felt, remembered. And perhaps that is the truest gift of snow and ice, that they sharpen our awareness of now, that they say, look closely, listen well, this will not last. And in that message is not sadness, but a kind of peace, a kind of reverence, a deep respect for the delicate, fleeting wonder of the world. Because what ice offers is not only cold, but clarity, not only stillness. And what snow gives us is not only whiteness, but pause, a gentler way of seeing, a reason to stop, layer by layer, so when the last snow melts, do not only welcome the warmth, also thank the cold, thank the quiet, thank the slow, intricate dance. Remember that the world is made not just of fire and growth and noise, but also of silence, softness, and the long patience of ice. And when next the snow returns, falling quietly through the dark, let it find you listening. Let it land on your sleeve. More than half your body, more than half your thoughts, more than half the breath that fogs a mirror, all of it carries the mark of water. And yet, the water in you is not just yours. It is ancient. It is shared. It has flowed through rivers, drifted through clouds, settled in glaciers, and once long ago, was born in stars. Hydrogen, the lightest and most abundant element. Its partner in forming water was created later, deep inside the hearts of massive stars. When those stars reached the end of their lives, they exploded, scattering their contents across space. From those explosions came the iron in your blood and the water that now rests in your cells. So when you drink, you are drinking starlight. And somehow, impossibly, that water found its way here, to this planet, to this moment. To you, Earth, from far away, glows blue, the color of oceans, of sky, of breath. Nearly 3/4 of its surface is covered in water, but most of it is in the oceans, vast, deep, and salted with memory. Only a small fraction is fresh, and most of that is locked in ice or hidden in stone. Through drinking, through food, through air. Every day, your body takes it in. Every day, it lets some go. You sweat, you breathe, you cry, and in each of these, water leaves you, moving on. And every drop that departs carries, part of you, with it a trace of warmth, of thought, of story, a participant in the great exchange. Within your body, Water is everywhere. It fills your cells, cushions your organs, softens your joints. It dissolves the nutrients you eat, carries signals along. Without water, there is no circulation, no digestion, no thought. Even your bones, seemingly solid and dry, contain water. Your brain, that dense constellation of memory and feeling, your very ability to imagine, depends on something that flows, and yet you rarely feel it. You feel thirst, yes, dryness in the mouth, a heaviness in the head, a fading of clarity, but the water within moves quietly. It does not announce itself. It surrounds your thoughts like a gentle current. It holds you without weight. When you cry, your tears are not only emotion, they are chemistry, a mix of water, salt, enzymes. But they are also memory of the water that made you, of the feelings that move you. Some scientists believe crying evolved to cool the brain, to signal, others to release stress, of your need to let go. And when you sweat, water leaves you not in punishment, but in protection. It cools your skin, carries heat away, allows you to. Your body does not hold water selfishly. It shares. It listens to temperature, effort, fear. It responds with release. Even your breath is moist. Every exhale carries droplets. The water in your body may one day fall as rain, feed a tree, enter another life. There is no ownership in this cycle. Only presence, only passage. The water in you has likely been in many others, animals, rivers, even people. And someday it will be again. Scientists have traced the age of water molecules, and they estimate that many of them are older than the sun. That means that the water you drink today was drifting through space long before Earth existed. It is not merely old, it is timeless. And through some quiet miracle, it found its way into you. When you look at the stars, you are not only looking at light, you are looking at origin, at the forge that made your atoms. And when you hold a glass of water, you are holding something that once drifted among those stars, that listens in its own way to your heart. Your heartbeat, in fact, is moved by water. Blood flows with each pulse, and water is its vehicle. Muscles contract, valves open, water moves. This motion is more than function, it is feeling. When your heart races, when it slows, when it softens in sleep, all of it is carried by water's quiet flow. And when you touch another person, hold a hand, wipe a tear, share a kiss, you are sharing water. Skin to skin, breath to breath. It moves through moisture. It carries presence. This is why water is so central to human ceremony. We bathe the newborn. We anoint the dying. We sip at weddings. We sprinkle at partings. In each ritual, water marks the moment. It does not speak, but it sanctifies. In others, it is the soul itself. In dreams, water represents feeling, depth, the unknown, and in science, it represents life. Every place we search for life, on Mars, on Europa, because where there is water, there may be breath, there may be presence. So the next time you feel thirsty, pause. Of glaciers and clouds, let it remind you that to drink is to reconnect with everything, that to be made of water is to be part of a story older than language. And when you drink, know this, the water is not entering you. The water in your veins does not simply move, it listens. It carries messages from one cell to another, bathes organs in quiet understanding. It travels with rhythm, aligning itself with your heartbeat, your breath, your sleep. It is the most constant companion you have ever known, and yet it asks for nothing but flow.